I believe that I am the best person for this job, regardless of where I've worked, my background, my history. I'm going to walk in there with, my chest held high and whatnot, head held high, and I'm gonna absolutely smash this.
Hey everybody, Brian Haugli. Welcome back to cisolife. You can find me anywhere down on LinkedIn using hashtag cisolife, or of course, subscribe down below on YouTube. Hit that bell for any of the latest and greatest. I am excited because I am joined today by Joe Head, the Director of CISO Search at Intaso, all the way from the UK, while we're here in Boston. So covering both sides of the pond. Here to talk about the industry, the CISO role, CISO searchability, placeability, and all things kind of underneath the CISO life. So Joe, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on this discussion.
No, thank you very much. I'm super excited to talk about this because I know we had a discussion previously, and yeah, lots of synergy and lots of things to talk about. So let's try and cram it all in as much as we can.
Sure, yeah. So let's start out at the top. Kind of, what is your role really encompass, and what's your true focus?
Yeah, so my job at Intaso is to help educate clients and organizations and businesses that are looking to hire a CISO. All right. And I think that's a very, very nuanced position currently. And there's so many different understandings of what a CISO really is. And we see it in the UK, right? You've got some CISO positions paying like 80,000. You've got some people that earn 500,000. And my job is to kind of help educate businesses on whether or not they need a CISO, what that looks like, what the value is in bringing someone on board. And actually, in some instances, telling businesses that you don't really need a CISO, right? Because not everyone needs one.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, look, SideChannel's in the vCISO business, and we definitely see quite a bit of opportunities where clients are looking and saying, I really want a full-time CISO, because they have this idea in their head about what's entailed with the role, the expectations, the time commitment. And you start talking to them and it's like, actually, for that type of price tag, I don't think I actually need a full-time person. Maybe I can get away with part-time. And then conversely, I've seen folks who've come to us and say, hey, we want a vCISO, because that's what they have in their head. And they're like, I want, this is about all I need. And you talk to them and they're like, wow, this is actually a full-time role. Like, so there seems to be quite a bit of shift in understanding of the role. What do you see, kind of as like the pinnacle CISO, like what's that core kind of expectation of the role to like be properly filled?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And I think, I mean, we could do a whole episode on that one question, right? But
Sure.
I think at the top, right? So I think what I certainly see, and I deal with people from all different kind of spectrums, right? The people that are at the top, 30, 40 years in industry, whatever, that have really made it. And then I see people coming through the ranks that want to be a CISO. What really defines the people at the top is there's like four key things that I look for, and that's leadership, execution, influence, and vision. And those four things kind of really encompass, if you can do those things really, really well in security, you are going to be on top as a CISO. And where like typically what happens is that people go through the ranks and they kind of pick up one, and they might be really good at leadership, but actually they really lack on that vision piece and being able to build a security strategy and being able to bring an organization like on a journey. So I think that's really important. It's like, actually, it's not just about talking about technology. It's not about going in and talking to the board about, XDR and SIEM and all of these kind of buzzwords that we've now got. It's actually about business, and it's the people that can identify that they know the business inside out, and then they work out how security plays into that. They're the people that are like absolutely at the top of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. You've got to be able to understand why you're even there, right? You're being brought in to support that business role. One thing I've always not struggled with, but had a lot of conversations with people, and they kind of get tripped up on, is kind of going between sectors. Like I've been a CISO in, healthcare, right? I know healthcare, I know the ins and outs of healthcare, but maybe I'm at a point where, I can't take another healthcare gig, or I'm looking for a change, or just the opportunities right now aren't in healthcare for a CISO, and I want to move over to finance, or I want to move over to manufacturing. What kind of recommendations maybe do you have to a CISO who's well qualified to be a CISO and obviously deep healthcare experience, but wants to change sectors?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. I think if you can identify the similarities, right? If you're working in healthcare, but you can sit down and someone that's like interviewing you, or you're discussing with like the C-suite this
Mm,
position, if you can identify the similarities and show tangible value that you can bring, as long as you can convey that with confidence and you've got evidence and data to back that up, then I think typically someone's going to take a bit of a risk on you. Where people go wrong is they don't necessarily know how to link the two industries, and it's a skill in itself, right? To
right.
seeing similarities, right? What are the similarities in healthcare and finance, right? Some people will be, oh, actually, I don't really know. I'm not sure. Actually, someone that's really good will go into really, really granular details and go, well, actually, in healthcare, there's lots of data, and in finance, we're dealing with lots of data. Okay, that might be a similarity. Let's pick that apart a little bit more. And again, what you then need to do is convey that value to the people in finance. You need to go, actually, this is the value, this is the tangible outcome, and here are the positives of it.
Yeah. Yeah. When I've talked to folks who've kind of asked me for advice, or they're like, hey, Brian, do you know any roles that are open? Because they are looking for a full-time role, and I'm a bit in tune with certain communities. And that's always the one I struggle with. Like, I can't, like, I feel like I don't know what you're capable of doing, but like, to your point, like, you need to be able to kind of tie it together. So like, yeah, it's always like, how do you kind of make that jump over to something that you don't have any exposure to as a sector, but you could do the job. Like,
Yeah.
I could do the job as a CISO in like any type of organization, maybe not like universities and education. I feel like that's one where I'm just academics and those types. It seems like a different breed and different kind of things that you're dealing with from protecting. But yeah, that one's always scratched my head. And I
What
feel
would
like a
you
lot of people kind of struggle with it too, you know?
yeah. What do you think? Similarities between healthcare and finance from
I
your
think
side?
you're spot on the on the data. I think if you focus not so much on, okay, well, finance is dealing with money and healthcare
Mm.
is dealing with, predominantly PII and patient care and safety, right? It's like, okay, yes, but if I was working for one manufacturing company and they made car parts, and then I translate my skill set to another manufacturing company that was making airplane parts? Entirely different outputs,
Yeah.
but the same underlying kind of requirements. So yeah, why not look at both finance and healthcare and say, hey, look, how do I look at protecting the data? How do I enable the people who are, using the processes, building the systems, running the business? How do I make sure that they're educated and they're governed? And if I abstract the actual output, can I still do the job? And I think that's
Yeah.
probably where you
And
try to make your case when you're trying to land it.
yeah, and you say about like the manufacturing piece. I think that's really interesting because actually that doesn't necessarily come down to like a tangible experience necessarily. That's a mindset. That's the
Yeah.
way you think about something rather than it being, oh, I've got X, Y, and Z, certification, or I work with this regulation in this in healthcare. And actually, what it is that's a mindset. Because you could say, well, the manufacturing, well, I've worked with this type of process for manufacturing.
Right.
Actually, I'm sure I could learn that because it's the way I think. It's, if you go to another manufacturer business, it's not to do with necessarily the physical, tangible thing that you can see. It's actually to do with how you think about something. And I think that's really important.
I was just at a dinner last night here in Boston. Shout out to the Secure World group. You guys put on a great dinner. And our table conversation actually kind of centered on some of this, but it was somebody had posed, like, well, if you've never been a Fortune 500 CISO, it's very difficult to get a Fortune 500 job. It seems like the recruiters or the talent acquisition strategies of HR for like a Fortune 500, just as a not sector, but like size of company. It's like, oh, well, you've never done anything on a Fortune 500, so you can't come into this Fortune 200 company. You wouldn't understand the scale. And it's like, well, hold on. I mean, that's not true either. Like, how did that become like this bar of entry where it's like, oh, well, you've never worked with a company that's done more than $1 billion, or $5 or $10 billion. It's like, is what I was able to do at a 200 or $500 million company capable of scaling up to and supporting somebody who's double, triple the size? Yeah, probably. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
actually probably an easier jump than going from different sectors. It
Mm.
is to like say, oh, I went in finance here, and now I'm at a finance company that's this size. Can I make and run a company that large? Yeah,
So
I would think so.
here's a question then. Okay, so I thought about this recently, which was like perception, which and how you're perceived and how you like come across. And
Mm,
actually, when I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, and that if you take someone, a CISO in a Fortune 500, right, or a FTSE 100 here in the UK, if you were to have a conversation with them, how different would your conversation be with someone in a big, large organization and someone in a smaller organization? It could be the same topic, but how are they talking with you? So again, it's that like perception. And I
right.
was trying to think the other day, and I was like, I wonder what like how those top CISOs are perceived. And I think there is an element of like confidence. Like I think that definitely like helps. I think there's an element of like
Sure.
I've I've done this, I know what I'm talking about, and I back what I'm saying. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that perception piece. It's almost like you kind of need to work in those jobs to get that perception, but then that
Right.
perception helps you for the future, right?
Yeah, but I mean, at some point, we kind of people have to kind of start breaking that barrier to be able to get in because there's only 500. In the U.S., there's only 500 in the Fortune
Yeah.
500. So, if you've only had a 505 job, like, are you just on the line? Like, but yeah, I think the
Yeah.
perception piece confidence is I think I think that's relevant for probably any executive.
Mm.
Take being a CISO and a security out of the equation. Are you confident to be able to influence the program that is being asked of you to be built? And that's generally kind of the executive's role is, can you exert the right level of influence inside of this company to get things done? And
Yeah.
whether that's on finance or you're managing a P&L or you're running the security program, can you walk into an organization and be like, I got this. I
Yeah.
can build relationships with people in the business. I can build relationships with HR, legal, and all these, and I can do this job. I can confidently walk the halls of this large enterprise, and I can make it happen. If you don't have that, I just don't think you're going to be probably a good executive. Period, regardless of
Yeah.
what role you're
Belief.
actually in.
It's belief, right? Like
Right.
someone going, I believe that I am the best person for this job, regardless of where I've worked, my background, my history. I'm going to walk in there with, my chest held high and whatnot, head held high, and I'm gonna absolutely smash this. And I actually think that's actually a quite difficult skill in itself because a lot of
Sure.
people don't always have that confidence, right? And so you've got to try and almost build systems and processes for yourself that can go, nope, I absolutely have the confidence to do this. I believe in myself. I'm going to bring people on this journey.
Right.
I am the vision and that influence, right? It's influencing the CEO and
Yeah.
saying, yeah, you've got to believe in me. I'm the person to deliver this job and this project.
So I gotta ask you if you've been because so you've seen a lot of candidates, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't want to answer this, that's fine, or definitely don't give names. But as somebody who's seen, a fair share of people who have applied for a role to work with you, and kind of on the flip side of what we were just talking about, overconfidence. People who are just like, I should be in this seat. Like I've seen a lot of people who are like, why aren't I talking to the board? And I like look them up and down. I'm like, there's no way anybody's putting you in front of a boardroom. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And yet they're
Yeah.
like, but I'm the CISO. I should be in front of the board. I gotta talk. You're like, dude, not with that attitude, not with your makeup. Like you are not that guy or girl right yet.
Yeah.
Okay. But like, have you seen like kind of like war stories? Like, have you just seen like a good amount of people who just think that they are just like they are ready for the role, and you're looking at them going like, yeah, not here,
Yeah.
buddy. Sorry.
I I think so, and I think that's probably down to I think there's a number of reasons why there are people like that in the market, and that's
Yeah,
because
that happens everywhere.
yeah, it happens everywhere, and certainly within cybersecurity, we built this kind of like ecosystem ourselves where we're almost like exacerbating the problem a little bit with like, again, I'm sure we'll talk about it, right? But you see like CISO job descriptions, but the pay doesn't reflect a true CISO
Right.
role. So if you're looking at a CISO position that is 80K, for instance, right? Now, someone that's been in the industry for a year and a half might be looking for an 80K salary and suddenly in themselves believe that they're ready for that CISO job because they've been in the industry for only a few years. They've not necessarily networked with the right people. And then suddenly they're like, oh, brilliant. There's a CISO job for 80K. I can do that. Brilliant. I'm ready for it.
Right.
So you definitely get that. I think there's like a I definitely see the people that aren't ready to like be a CISO are like normally the ones the people that can't they say they're ready to do it, but they don't necessarily then have the tangible experience to back that up and the evidence to say, like take like leadership for example, right? One of the key things in being a CISO is you've got to be a relatively good leader and manager of people. Now, as you climb up the ranks, the more people you manage, naturally that then affects your pay and the seniority of the role, right? As you kind of that's in any position really. Um, and so what happens is you kind of go, okay, so you don't need to have managed 200 people, but tell me a time that you've actually helped someone or led someone, even if you only had one person in your team. What did you do that is evidence of you helping that individual and showing that you can bring someone through and help them deliver on their own goals and what they want to achieve? So normally it's like it's all talk, right? It's all like, yeah, I can do this, I can manage 200 people, I can do this, but you haven't even demonstrated that you can lead and help one person. How
Yeah.
do you think you manage a team of 100 odd people, right?
I see. I've had this talk with folks, and I've looked from like outside the fishbowl, like at organizations that have done this, and this seems to happen with, Bob. I always pick on a Bob. Bob is very technically capable. He's an incredible technical, expert, and he's shown his worth. And you know, Bob, congratulations, you're a manager now of the team. And it turns out Bob is a terrible manager,
Yeah.
and it's like, and people scratch their heads. I've had peers, who were just like, I can't believe this. This guy was amazing. And we made him a part of the team and the team fell apart. It was like, yeah, Bob didn't, you hired it, you promoted somebody into management who had very poor management skills because you believe that his technical skills translated to being a leader. Because like, oh, well, that's the next step for Bob. That's the career progression. It's like, I think we're thinking about career progression wrong for folks. It's like, you need a technical track, you need a management track, you need them to be able to cross when appropriate. But it's
Hmm.
not always a given that because you're good in one and you've risen to a level that you are now ready to take over on the other ladder, if you will, that's kind of moving, to be able to then say, okay, now you're ready to go do that. I feel like people make that mistake all the time, and it just no one seems to be learning from that, like that
Yeah,
exercise.
do you know what's really interesting? Actually, I had this conversation earlier with a CISO earlier this week, a lady called Catherine, and if she watches this, she'll know exactly who she is. Um, and she was telling me that we are in this kind of like weird space at the moment where like you're absolutely right. Like we're always almost like you have to be a manager or a leader, and it's like actually some people are just not. They don't want to do that. They don't want to, and they can't. And you know what? That's okay. Like
Yeah,
just because you can't manage people or lead people or you want to run big teams doesn't mean you can't be successful.
right.
But fortunately most businesses have fallen in the trap of going, well, we've got great career progression because it goes all the way from like junior level all the way up to like director VP level where you get to manage big teams. And most people are like, some people are like, I don't want to do that. I just want to be either,
Yeah,
I want to just be like the best security engineer or the absolute best security architect like
right.
there is. I just want to do that. And we're not, I don't see many businesses like really like helping people on the tech side, like
Mm.
really saying, yeah, we get it. We know you can't manage people, but that doesn't mean you can't be successful here.
So I saw this fall down and like happen just like in the wrongest way, if that's a word. Um, the last Fortune 500 I worked at, and if you look up, anything about me, you'll know exactly where I worked. And if you're watching, folks, you know exactly who you are. We had bands, right, for our technical experts. And I promoted people to a certain level and they top out in the band. And I can't promote them anymore because HR was like, oh, well, no, these are the bands for, you have to work in. If they want to make more money, they have to be a manager. And I'm like, so you're forcing me to follow this terrible idea because
Yeah.
this person deserves this type of salary based on their capabilities, but I have to make them a manager or director level, and then it's like, okay, well, can I make them that and not give them any reports? Can they just have that title and be in that band? Like, oh no, they need at least, and that role has to have X amount of reports. And you're like,
Yeah.
who came up with this? Like,
It's backwards.
yeah, we're just we're supporting a terrible situation. Anyway, as a recruiter, like what's your biggest ask of people who are approaching you to work with you? what's your generally kind of, how can they make your job easier to help them? If you could give anybody some advice.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm glad I get a bit of a platform to say this, and hopefully kind of like people see this, right? My biggest thing is reach out to me when you're not looking for a job. And that sounds so counterintuitive and so backward. And people are like, hang on, why would I want to talk to you if I'm not looking for a job? And that's the exact reason why you need to talk to me, because you need to build a relationship. You need to nurture those relationships, and you have to put time and effort in. Like if you're reaching out to me and actually you've just started a new job, you're 3 months in, and you reach out to me and say, Joe, I've just started a new job. I'm not going to be looking for the next year and a half, but I want to build that relationship with you for when I do need to look around, or let's grab a coffee, let's grab a drink or whatever. That's far more valuable than going, please find me a job. Right now, the amount of messages I get, I get people messaging me and they don't even say hi. They just say, find me a job or call me. And you just think, this is not how this works. Like
Right.
it's about long term. So I always say, like, it doesn't matter, regardless of if you're absolutely happy in a job and you see yourself staying there for 5 years, right? What's the harm in let's meet, let's connect and nurture that relationship? Because you just don't know what might happen. And we might get a client come to us and say, look, we're hiring for a CISO. And then I can reach out to you because we've got that relationship and run that job by you.
Right.
And we've already got that relationship, and I already know you, and I kind of know you as a person. Like, forget security. Like most of the time, if you're a senior enough person in security, you should know security, but actually it's the softer skills, right? It's getting to know you as a person. Like, are you a decent human being, or are you a bit of an arrogant twat?
I love it. Joe Head, agent to the CISOs and the stars. Check him out at Intaso. You can definitely find him on social media. That's how we connected. LinkedIn predominantly. Love all your content. Keep putting that out there. This will be out whenever it's out. When you see it is when you see it. But I want to thank you, Joe. How can anybody else reach you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, just reach me on LinkedIn. Go to our website, intaso.co. That's .co. Yeah, connect with everyone in the business. Feel free to drop me a line on LinkedIn. Obviously, if you write hi Joe, not just find me a job, that'd be really helpful. But yeah, happy to connect with anyone. Normally, I put content out daily to help like the future cybersecurity workforce, security leadership, and obviously, yeah, championing the CISO job role.
I love it. Well, thanks again for being on, and we'll put all your information down in the description, down in the comments, and everywhere else, so everyone will be able to find it. Brian Haugli with cisolife. Thanks again for everybody for watching. Be safe, be good, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.